Yeah, it was a combination of leaving those huge gaps between each player and the lack of pressing, which gave Barkley the opportunity to, as you said, thread that ball through. And yeah, the corner, the goal that we conceded, another corner. Adebayo this time gets ahead to it, but there's a bigger talking point, isn't there, about this
There
goal?
is.
It isn't the fact that Luton scored very early on in the second half. It isn't the fact that it was well worked and it was well deserved, but it was the fact that David Raya, with yet again another really poor moment.
Yeah, and I think it's really disappointing considering how good he's been in the last three games, and he's been really strong in the Burnley game. He was really good then, really good against Lons, and then against Wolves as well. Fantastic, probably his best game for us. So it's one of those, if a keeper comes for that ball, they have to win it because it's not a good header. It's one of those, when you're that close to goal, if the keeper's missed it or you've got ahead of the keeper, you just need to get the ball on target and you've scored. And the frustrating thing is, it was two goals from corners that, firstly, we rarely concede from corners anymore. And secondly, when we do, we don't concede two goals that poorly. But it's another per moment for Raya, and I think the big thing is it's again this soap opera that Arteta's created, and I think
Mhm.
every one of us backs Arteta, really believes in him, really trusts what he's doing, and thinks he's made very few wrong decisions. However, this one, I've always said that Raya and Ramsdale are two keepers with a very, very fine degree of difference between them. And I think what's happened this year is we're not really seeing either of them at their best because the two of them are always in this battle. And like, we're always very quick to shoot down a lot of mainstream media pundits and say they're talking nonsense because a lot of the time it is very biased, kind of single minded commentary. However, the range of people that have come out and said having two number one goalkeepers doesn't work, from Peter Schmeichel to Gary Neville to kind of everyone involved in the game. The fact that so many people have been consistent with the viewpoint, maybe it's one of those that we perhaps have to listen to that. And it's Arsenal aren't the winners from this situation at this time. So we don't have two keepers giving their best on the pitch. We've got two keepers who both look like they're competing every time they step on the pitch just to play the next game. And I think that's a worry. And that from Raya today, it was really poor. I think that's the only way to describe it. He's not dominant. He's not. He comes out and he doesn't seem to know what he's going to do when he comes for the ball, and I think that's a major worry. But the thing is, again, I've been very defensive of Raya. I think he is a very, very good goalkeeper. But this feeds into the Ramsdale debate, and every time one of them makes a mistake, the half of the fan base that wants the other in will just be screaming for Ramsdale. And that wouldn't happen if Ramsdale made a mistake, we would complain about it, we would have moved on. And there may have been people saying we can upgrade in goal. However, having two of them just means you're always comparing the one that's on the bench to the one that's actually in goal. And that's again what we've seen online today. So for me, this is a worrying situation because that's a lot of mistakes Raya's now made. And I thought he had kind of put them behind him, given the last few performances. But today was a really, really poor kind of. It was a poor 10 minutes because he was good in the first half. He had a really shocking 10 minutes and then he didn't really have anything to do. So it was just one of those really frustrating. It was in my opinion, it was the worst 10 minutes we've seen from an Arsenal goalkeeper since Leno lost his head against Wolves and ended up getting sent off in that game.
Let me ask you a quick question before I give my take on this. Has David Raya had more good moments than bad moments?
I was thinking about this during the game, and I think no. I think there's been good moments, but I think the issue with being a goalkeeper is your bad moments are always going to be moments that cost teams goals. And the Chelsea one, and there's been like the Lons game. Lons I've always felt a bit harsh because of how good the goal was, but tonight we saw two huge errors. So I was thinking about it, and I think it's probably 50-50, which for a goalkeeper isn't good. And it's very worrying. So give me your take. I imagine you're going to be harsher than I am.
Well, look, I think one of the reasons why fans are so polarized on this topic, on this argument, this debate, whatever you want to call it, is because Ramsdale has had um, more memorable, good moments, top saves, highlight reels, than those moments that we tend not to think about, which is, rash decision making, maybe, poor again one on ones. But for the most part, last season he managed to produce outstanding saves. He was really good on his feet, and he brought an aura about him. Whereas I feel like David Raya hasn't produced anything spectacular for us to turn around and justify what's happened here. And as you rightly said, Arteta's created this soap opera where by now we don't have two number one goalkeepers, and this is one of the reasons why I asked you the question at the beginning, which was, is there any point critiquing David Raya? Because it seems like Arteta has already made up his mind. It seems like David Raya is Arsenal's number one, Ramsdale is the number two, and I made the point at the beginning of this whole debacle that you know this this situation that Arteta has created could have worked had the games been evenly distributed between two keepers. Now, the argument remains whether it's a realistic thing for two top goalkeepers to be given equal number of games, but it definitely would have eased their nerves knowing that they'd be getting game time. It definitely would have reduced, in my opinion, the errors that we're seeing, because keepers would have been playing with a lot less tension and yeah, that kind of pressure on them. So, but had it been just this goal, fair enough, we can maybe brush it under the carpet. He was beaten by a really strong individual in the air. We know that David Raya isn't the tallest. We know that he's got faults in his game. He's not perfect, but he's really, really good. It's the third goal that amplifies everything. It gave me like hallmarks of another goalkeeper who's performing really poorly in Andre Onana, and a very similar sort of goal that he conceded as well, where the ball, I think it was the Champions League against Galatasaray, the ball just rolls
Yeah.
under him. And again, here there really isn't any excuses. We really can't fork him out, you know, an excuse. Um, he should be saving these. Really, I mean, it was really good play from
Yeah.
Luton.
Look,
Let's not take anything away from them.
it's good play, but I think you've summed it up well there with the header. It's a big, strong, physical forward who was causing Saliba a lot of problems during the game. He's a real handful. When I have watched Luton this season, he's been a man that's caused every defender problems because he's so good in the air. Uh, However, so you can point to that. You can say, look, the striker's done well, whatever. And I think you're right. If the second one doesn't happen, you can brush it under the carpet and move on. But we have seen a lot of mistakes. And then the second one, however, look, that's inexcusable. That's schoolboy. That's not even schoolboy. Look, that's basic goalkeeping. It's not a good shot from Barkley. He does well to get into the box. He moves well. He gets in far too easy, but he does move pretty well. And he shoots, keeps it down low, keeps it on target. But that should be a nice one for the keeper to save. You get that, you keep it into your body, make sure you get down tight to the ground, and you keep it in your hands because there's not enough power on it for it to really warrant him pushing it back out. But look, it's one of those where I don't know how to explain it. And I wonder, had the first mistake not happened, if that would have happened. And it's a big worry because if you're Aaron Ramsdale and you're looking at those two big mistakes, you have to be questioning what it takes for you to get back into the team. And I think if you look at the collection of errors from Raya now, yes, there have been a lot of good moments, and I really like him. I think he's great at collecting in the air. I thought with his feet today he was excellent, and there was a lot of really strong moments from Raya. But they had 4 shots on target, and they scored because of two big mistakes from him. And that's the life of a goalkeeper. You are judged on those errors. You're not judged on the 50 passes you play during a game. You're judged by the 2 goals you let in that were a direct result of your mistakes. So it's going to be a very, very tough lesson to learn. And I, I don't know what's next here. I think that's the big concern. It's, do we have full trust in Raya? Because yes, I think he's a super goalkeeper. I don't think this situation's working. And I think if Raya was our number one and we didn't have Ramsdale at the club and we had a number two with Raya clearly defined as number one, I think he would be a better goalkeeper. I also think we would get the old Aaron Ramsdale back, a player with huge potential who's still only 25, if David Raya wasn't at the club. So I it's a transfer that never made sense because I also think it left us one short outfield. And yes, it was an
Mm.
opportunity and it was a bargain, but it's again after a game where we've just won, we're talking about goalkeeping errors. And we haven't really talked about that for the last couple of years with Ramsdale, barring a few games.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you, interested to hear from you what your thoughts are on whether you think Aaron Ramsdale is capable, or if he was in that situation, would he be making those types of mistakes? Because I think that plays into why this is such a hot debate. I don't think that for all the um I don't know what word you'd describe Ramsdale's natural
Mistakes.
position as a goalkeeper. Not necessarily mistakes, but I guess his like brashness, maybe, or his he's a little bit rough around the edges. But for all of that, he can do the basics. Ramsdale, I don't think he's ever made that big of a mistake where you're questioning whether he's able to do the basics well. Catching it in the air, being able to punch balls out, even if he makes the wrong decision, we know that he can stop shots, and he can claim the ball. He's vocal. He can play the ball with his feet as well. And so, yeah, I think you make a really good point, or you ask a really important question about what Ramsdale's going to be thinking tomorrow morning at Coney. Um, because I think there's no doubt that we will see Raya back in goal against Villa, right? So, and January is weeks away. So it really is beginning to hot up here. But yeah, tell me what you think about Ramsdale potentially, whether he's capable of making those kind of mistakes or not.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen some big mistakes from Ramsdale over the last couple of years. So I think any goalkeeper is capable of it. I think one of the things I wonder, though, is so first mistake happens tonight, and obviously a clanger, but it's still two each. Teammates pick you up, you get back at it, and you go back out. If Raya isn't thinking about this battle with Ramsdale, or because that has to be at the back of his mind, I don't care what anyone says about elite players putting stuff to their back of their mind. Every ex pro talks about this stuff, and it's when everyone does it, it's clearly not bullshit. If it was just Gary Neville saying it, I'd call bullshit. But when you've got some of the best
Hmm.
evers like a Peter Schmeichel saying it, there's clearly truth in it. And I think if that first mistake has to put a level of doubt into his head that he's probably thinking about his place. He's had the fans on his back, he's had the media on his back. And actually, Raya as a character hasn't done anything wrong. He came to a club, he got a big move, and he came in, he was very respectful to Ramsdale. He came in, he was given game time by Arteta, and Ramsdale himself has spoken positively of him as well. It's a case of, yes, he's made mistakes, but this is very much a situation created by Arteta. And I do wonder if, again, with Ramsdale, if he was in goal, we saw the mistake he made against Brentford that Rice cleared off the line. With the
Mm.
exception of Southampton, I don't think we would have seen Ramsdale that nervous in a game like that. So I think a lot of this is down to the situation, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, but
I,
our other
I would love.
signings were pretty good today, though.
Yeah. They were okay. By their standards, they were all right. They got the job done. I was just gonna say, just to finally end this portion of the podcast, I would love for this to be, and I know this is definitely not the case, but I'd love for this to be Arteta just giving Ramsdale a lesson. Like, this is what happens when you end up going on podcasts week after week, talking shit all the time. Because I felt like Ramsdale was entering a really like weird period in his career where he was getting a little bit overconfident of himself. Maybe he felt invincible. Maybe he felt like no one could knock him off his place. He came in, he took Leno's place. He wasn't going to let anyone else take his place. He was, really quite vocal about his abilities as well. The moment where he was describing how his what goes through his head with Ian Wright, not being
Yeah,
focused, etc., etc. Maybe this is Arteta just giving him that harsh reality. Like, look, you're going to be our number one, but I need to do a few things here to make sure that you grow out of this phase as quickly as possible. Humble you a little bit.
I mean, I've heard crazier things, so I genuinely don't know. I think
Yeah.
this is a man that said he wanted to sub keepers mid game, so honestly, that could be something in his mind. I don't think it is, but at the same time, I just I don't second guess Mikel Arteta just because I think when we think he'll do something, he generally does the opposite. So yeah,
Mm.
let's
Okay.
wait and see. Oh
Cool.
yeah,
Right.
very far on
So,
Ramsdale is free
uh,
for the Arsenal therapy pod.
do you know what? You've now planted a seed in my head now.